I thought in light of this week and the craziness of everything happened, and just kind of like what we were praying about earlier tonight with living in the in-between of, yeah, it's really great that we're safe, but on the other flip side of the coin, there's people out there that have died. There's people that are really injured. There's people that are without food and water and safety and shelter, the basic things that humans need. And so I thought tonight we would just have a casual night. We take it to be able to take a deep breath before we go back into the craziness of our normal lives, of school and everything. And I also, coming off of our really fun 80s community night, which, did you guys have fun? Did you really like doing it? Yeah. Yeah. Our next community night is our Halloween party on the at the end of this month. So that's another really easy opportunity for you to invite friends. But one of the things that kind of wanted to talk about tonight was kind of the culture that I'm kind of hoping that as we really start doing more community events, that you guys start getting comfortable bringing your friends, that new people are coming in, because we have new friends. We have friends that have only been here for a couple of weeks. Some friends come every once in a while. You might not have brought a friend before, and that might be something new that you do this year or the year coming up. And so I really want to talk tonight kind of about what our culture here at Anona looks like and what I hope for it to look like for everybody. And so raise your hand if you've ever heard of the author Bob Goff. Have you guys never heard of Bob Goff? Anson, you're the only one? Okay, so Bob Goff was super popular like when I was in middle school and high school, like when I was in youth group like you guys. He's this really amazing author and guy that goes around and does a lot of talks at conferences. He is this like bright and bubbly and whimsical person. He's not the normal type of person. He's out of the norms. He's really great person. But he wrote this book called Love Does, and it's talking about all of the ways, so discovering a secretly incredible life in an ordinary world. And so he talks about all of the really wonderful ways that you could find love and find God in all of the ordinary parts. So I kind of wanted to read an excerpt from this book for you guys tonight. So you guys want to do a story time? Because this is really important stuff, and maybe some of the most important stuff that we can be learning and hearing tonight and for this youth group. So I'm in a chapter 11 here. In the beginning of this chapter, I'm not going to read all of it because it gets to be a little bit long. Bob Goff is talking about a time to where one of his friends and him were in DC, and they ran across the National Treasure 2 movie being filmed, and they somehow got onto the movie site and was like walking around like they were invited to be there, but they really weren't. And then he told this like story about how he would take his family to DC around the time that the Easter egg hunt. Do you guys know like that the White House does that really cool Easter egg hunt every Easter? Okay, so they invite these really posh people. And so basically what their family did was they would put eggs out for their kids on the other side of the gate, and they dress up and look all important and pretend to be a part of it. And so he's really talking about, there's points to where like there's things that we really want to be invited to, but we really never are actually invited to. And so this is where we're going to be jumping in now. So this is Bob Goff talking, not me talking. Okay. So there is only one invitation it would kill me to refuse, yet I'm tempted to turn it down all the time. I get the invitation every morning when I wake up to actually live a life of complete engagement, a life of whimsy, a life, a life where love really does. It doesn't come in an envelope. It's ushered in by a sunrise, by a sound of a bird, or the smell of coffee drifting lazily from the kitchen. It's the invitation to actually live, to fully participate in this amazing life for one more day. Nobody turns down an invitation to the White House, but I've seen plenty of people turn down an invitation to fully live. Turning down this invitation comes in lots of flavors. It looks like numbing yourself or distracting yourself or seeing something really beautiful just as normal. It can also look like refusing to forgive or not being grateful or getting wrapped around the axle with fear or envy. And I think every day God sends us an invitation to live, and sometimes we forget to show up or get head faked into thinking we haven't really been invited. But you see, we have been invited every day, all over again. There's no doubt Jesus invites us to have some very cool experiences in our lives. And for that matter, in the afterlife too. Jesus tells a story in the Bible about a rich guy who had a banquet. Now, this rich guy invited lots of people, really important people, but most of them made excuses and really didn't come. So the guy sent his servants to invite other folks. But this time, he invited the unlikely ones, people who normally wouldn't get invited to anything, folks like me. The message he had for this new round of people was simple: there's more room. That was it. That's all there was to it. It wasn't a deep theological treatise, yet this is exactly what that was: deep and theological. I think life is like that banquet Jesus talked about. I think God sends out his messengers to tell everybody that there's plenty of room and there's free food and conversation and adventure and a wonderful and generous host who has invited us by name. It's as though the people invited to the White House Easter egg hunt don't bother to show up, let's say. And the president sends out the guys in the suits to see if anybody else wants to come. Now, maybe people like us who are just on the other side of the fence. The servants come up to each of us, leaning close, and whisper in our ears, "There's more room." That's it. That's all that needs to be said. There aren't any magic words to say in response. We don't need to give a speech or get a bracelet or a bumper sticker or a tattoo. We just need to decide to be fully engaged. In that way, life can be a sweepstakes, one where you must be present to win. I don't think God is the kind of guy who forces himself on anybody either. If people don't want to come to the banquet, he's not bitter or anything. He loves them all the same, but he's not going to force them to be there. Instead, he just keeps looking. He keeps going. He keeps saying there's more room to those who really want to be invited to where he is. He's like any of us in that way. I think God pays attention to our hearts and enjoys when people get close to him and want to get close to him. He knows our sadness and the brokenness we want to hide from him, and he sends people to look for us anyways. When I was young and thought about God and church and Jesus, I would shy away because I thought getting close to God was like breaking onto the set of National Treasure 2. I thought there was lots of long corridors to navigate, there were arrows pointing in all kinds of directions, and the religious people were the security guards keeping everybody out that weren't supposed to be there. They were the people checking to see if you had actually been invited. But Jesus never acted like that. When you read the Bible, the people who loved Jesus and followed him were the ones like me who don't get invited to normal places. Yet Jesus told his friends they were invited anyways. In fact, he told them that the religious people weren't the ones who decided who got into heaven and who didn't. He said the people who followed him should think of themselves more like the ushers rather than the bouncers, and it would be God who decides who gets in. We're just the ones who simply show people their seats and that someone else has paid for. Can you believe that Jesus would invite people to a banquet and that they wouldn't show up? When we accept Jesus' invitation to show up to life, we get to do life with him. He's way more powerful and important than the president or Nicolas Cage for that matter. A couple of other things happen when we accept Jesus' invitation to participate with him in life. Obstacles that seem insurmountable aren't. Impediments that we believe disqualify us don't. When we show up to participate with Jesus in the big life, we're participating with the very being who made life in the first place. He gently asks us how we are and invites us to get better together with him, right beside him. Accepting the invitation to show up in life is about moving from the bleachers to the field. It's moving from developing opinions to developing options. It's about having things matter to us enough that we stop just to think about those things and actually do something about them. Simply put, Jesus is looking for us to accept the invitation to participate. It's like the president is calling and we just need to answer the phone. We need to show up. When we accept life's invitation, it's contagious too. Other people will watch us and start seeing life as something more amazing, more whimsical than before. When you show up to the big life, people, the type that don't really think that they're invited, start seeing invitations everywhere as thick as colorful fall leaves. They don't think about their pain or their weakness any longer. Instead, they think about how incredible a big life really is and how powerful the one who is throwing the banquet is too. Jesus wants us to come. He's sending his servants out to tell the people standing at the fences and in the libraries that they're invited to the party. He's sending you an invitation too, in the sunrise, in the sound of a bird, or in the smell of coffee drifting lazily from the kitchen. The one who's invited you is way more powerful than any of the impediments that we think we're facing. He has just one message for us. He leans forward and whispers quietly for us, there's more room. Now, friends, I read this story because one, I want you to know that there's always room at the table for each of you here. There's always room at the table, and Jesus wants you there. He wants to get intimate with you. He wants to get personal with you. He wants to sit down at that table and get to know who you are, and so that you can also get to know who Jesus is too, who God is too. And that is this, I hope, is a place to where you can be able to come here and learn how to accept that invitation every day. The other thing that I want you to know is that God is not forcing us to accept that invitation. God is not this big, powerful God that if you don't do these certain things, then you're going to, get the invitation revoked. There's going to be times in our lives when it feels like we're not invited, or it feels like we can't accept that invitation because of a certain thing. And yet God shows up and gives you that invitation every single day. And then the third point is that my hope is that you guys can help other people see that invitation for themselves. So for new people that come in, for new friends, for people that might not feel like they've ever had an invitation or they've never been invited to a party, that this could be the place to where they know that there's a seat at the table for them, that we can create a place to where everybody belongs here. No matter if they believe it or not yet, my hope is that eventually that they will. But if anything, my hope is that here they will know that they're loved by not only the leaders in this room, by not only God, but they know that they're loved by your peers, by each of you here. And so my hope and my challenge for you guys is one, anybody can come to the table. Any of your friends can come. Anybody can show up and walk through those doors and be welcomed here. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what they believe in. It doesn't matter if they come to this church or not on a regular basis. It doesn't matter if you've known them for 5 minutes or 5 years. They belong here and they're welcome here, and that they could find a place here. And so my hope and my challenge is that you know that you're invited to the table, and that you open up those seats, and that you make sure other people know that they're invited to the table too, and that they get that invitation. And so look for those invitations every day. Wake up and remember that it's a choice that we have to make every single day, that it's not an easy thing, that sometimes we want to say no, sometimes we think we're not invited, sometimes we feel like we can't go because of a certain thing, but know that you're always invited and you're always welcome. And so that's my hope for this culture, for us as a community, as one family, is that there's always an invitation at the table, and there's always a seat, and there's always more room.